Today I'll be roasting 200 pounds of Honduran coffee and Nicaraguan coffee. It's about 100 each. And what I'm going to do is take it from here. I then have a scale that's zeroed out and weighed here. You get an idea. Winds up in one of these, which then gets moved to the hopper on top here. Then the machine itself has some gauges here. We have the top is the bean temperature, the bottom is the drum, and then above that you can see the gauge for how much pressure and how much gas flow there is coming in to the roaster itself. Now currently there's no coffee in as it's during the warm-up phase. Once it hits 400, I'll drop it and I'll start the video again from there. It's pretty warm out today, so the roaster is 375, and I know that I'm good to drop. I'm going to kick the heat up pretty high here, almost 100%, and we're going to drop the Honduran. It's starting to get a little loud. I don't know that you're going to be able to see it here because I don't have very good lighting for this. That'll give you an idea. And you will see this coffee then rebound. I'm going to take a guess that it's going to rebound at about 160, and that's what we want to see. So we'll sit here and watch it rebound. So we've dropped our coffee and it's rebounded at 160, and see there it went. We dropped it at just around 400. My heat is at 90% for this batch. We're going to give it an S curve, which if you look at heat versus time, the drum temperature will look like an S sort of, where we give it high heat until just about first crack. Then as that hits, we're going to back down the heat a good bit, and we're going to watch our gauges and see how much we need to back down, because on my machine it could vary from yours. I know that I have to back it down in a variety of places, especially depending on how much air and how cool the temperature outside is today. And that right there, that lever, controls the airflow to my drum or to my cooling tray right here. So my S-curve probably isn't as extreme as the ones you'll read about in Roast Magazine, just because of my particular machine. I think I'll back it to about 60% heat as first crack starts to hit. And then after first crack is said and done at about 412 degrees, give or take, it can go between 410 and 420. We're going to kick it up to 70% heat and make sure that we add heat to the roaster faster than it takes. The idea is that during first crack, it will become endothermic. It will absorb heat, due for a variety of reasons. It's sugars melting, there's some trapped water, and some chemical reactions. It's both physical and chemical from what I've understood on why it is endothermic during first crack. So we don't want to, we back down the heat. We don't want to give it heat during that time because the sugar chains and some of the flavors it has are delicate, and we want to preserve those without baking the coffee is the theory behind it. Nothing more to say about it. If you've never played around with it, it's a little hard to explain, but trust me that if you have a short first crack, those flavors are not there, and if you have too long of a first crack, you'll bake those flavors off. So think of the difference between adding a strawberry to high heat as opposed to baking a strawberry, how different they would taste. I like to think of first crack as a fruit reduction. If you've ever played around with fruit reductions before. You have to pardon me, I have a mosquito that keeps trying to get me there. Now, when it goes into second crack, it becomes exothermic. It tries to give heat, and we have to put more heat than it's trying to produce in the roaster. We're trying to make sure it doesn't take too much heat away from it doesn't catch up to the drum. I don't really have much to say about the theory behind that. I don't know if there's anything to do with the plant fibers or why exactly it is that way, but I know that if we don't, it'll taste very, very baked, and that's terrible. It might have to do with some sort of weird delayed Maillard reaction. I'm not 100% on why the sugars act that way. If someone else knows, they can ask me, or they can tell me. I've never thought about it too much. But I do know that it is definitely exothermic during second crack. It gives off a ton of heat, so we have to up it. And the chart will look like an S if we track the bean temperature and the drum temperature on heat versus time on a chart. During this time period, we can look at the coffee roasting. There's not good lighting on the camera, unfortunately. And I can pull that out and smell it and make sure that I'm okay. Right now, I know I'm fine for this particular coffee. As it gets closer to first crack, I'll start to sniff it. But there's not a whole lot else to do. I'm going to pause this until first crack. Okay, we are approaching first crack. One of the other questions you might have are, how long it takes to do this particular dark roast curve, because we're going to hit second crack rapid today. That's the request of this particular customer for this coffee. It's not my necessarily preference for this region, but they all seem to love it. Now, this roast probably takes about 14 and a half minutes total. I don't have all of it recorded here on the video, but I'm taking it apart in chunks. But I wanted to give you that idea. I roast on an old drum roaster here, old style drum roaster. It's a medium steel or mild steel. Either way, it's not stainless, I can tell you that. It kind of naturally oils itself too from the coffee, so it's really nice. Kind of like a weird cast iron pan in some ways. So the point I'm getting at here is I generally roast longer than other roasters. I like that less sharpness, more richness to my coffee. It's an argument amongst roasters I've met, but I like old slow drum styles. I have espresso roasts that go 19 to 20 minutes, and that's pretty long. The shortest coffee I've ever roasted on here is 9, which is too short in my opinion, and I have some like Ethiopians that are about 12 minutes. And I don't go any particularly outrageous other than that. I do like my slow drum roast, my average 16-minute roast I do like. I stand by 9's too short. I think you're scorching and burning the coffee. I don't know who would argue much against that. 11 and 12, some Ethiopians go, and I think that's nice. It's a really sweet spot. So here we are. We know first crack's going to be coming up, so we're going to kick this down. I'm looking at my temperature and the way the air is and the heat outside today, and I'm going to say it's going to be just about 61% on my machine. Your machine's going to vary. You got to play with it and know it. And now we're hitting first crack. I'm going to take this out and smell. We're going to take this out here. It smells really good. It's nice and just becoming sweet. Sorry for the shakiness of this. It's the only way I know how to do this so that everyone can see. I had a lot of requests for this, so I'm going to pause it again until we hit closer to second crack. Okay, we're back at it here. I wanted to talk about first crack a little bit more. First crack, I was told by Bill Kennedy, the longest we ever want to see it go is 3 minutes. The shortest I've ever taken it is 90 seconds. It was 90 seconds for an Ethiopian Sodomo. The first crack flavors taste really bad in my opinion. It tastes like bananas with spoiled chocolate milk. It's just the way the coffee was, and I was taking it darker for a particular blend. I did not like the first crack flavors. I made it as short as I could without scorching it. I just wanted to give you an idea. That's kind of the range. Now we're going to kick this up to about 70%, and look at this. It's looking really solid right now. It's hard to do this with one hand, harder than you may think. There we go. So we want this to hit about 433. You can hear, I'm sure. Let you hear. That is the beginning of second crack. The customers requested that it goes a little bit darker. We have a gauge here, but gauges are not life and death. They are not the end-all be-all. That's the sound we know we want to hear. I don't think that you can see anything, but maybe if I'm lucky you can see the beans spilling out. I have a manual turner, so I have to grip this here and I have to turn this by hand. And I also have to kick my fan over. Sorry that you got to see a little bit of a mess there, but we're going to slowly start turning this. We're going to let the drum cool down to 400, and we'll start the batch all over again. To remove the coffee from a cooling tray, I have an infrared, but I know by now my timing, I can do it by a little bit by hand, so to speak. I want it to be 200 degrees before I put it into storage. A note on storage, coffee produces a lot of CO2. If you have it on really airtight storage, and you have, if you're a home roaster or you're learning to be a small batch roaster, it will break storage that is not proper if you don't give it enough room to degas, or you don't give it a one-way valve on your storage. So storage can be tricky if you're getting new, if you're new to this. Take care, everyone. I hear I know how to turn this off too.